right, so let's dive into episode 3 of Ahsoka now, called Time to Fly. I have reviews for the other 2 episodes up on my channel already. If you haven't seen them yet, I suggest you watch those first. They're in the link in the description. And let's just go on to number 3. I usually like to start these reviews by telling you the runtime of the episode that does not include end credits and recap, because especially in this one, it's interesting. It's the shortest one so far out of the 4 episodes that are released as of recording of this video. I know that by the time that my video releases, episode 5 is already released. As of right now, this is still the shortest episode with only 29 minutes and 46 seconds. Not even half an hour long. Considering the first episode was over 50 minutes, it's quite a big difference to me. It's weird that they just choose whatever kind of runtime, it doesn't matter, we don't care. This episode felt very short to me, honestly. When the episode was done, I was like, that's it. I mean, to be fair, I really like what we saw in this episode, but I wanted more, okay? Like, I don't know if that comes off as entitled, but as someone who knows that this season will only have 8 episodes in total, it's not a lot, I was kind of expecting, Game of Thrones length episodes, like between 50 minutes and an hour, because it's only 8 episodes. It's not a whole lot. Anyway, I always need to give a spoiler warning because I'm going to go into all the details and everything of this episode. If you haven't seen episode 3 of Ahsoka, watch the episode first, or you should not care about spoilers and just listen to me, I suppose. Yeah, I've been warned. So the episode starts with Sabine doing some training with wooden sticks, which is interesting because if you know Star Wars Rebels and the episode Trials of the Darksaber, you know that Sabine also trained with wooden sticks in that episode with Kanan. And I also like how it pretty much just references that episode very subtly, because Ahsoka at one point tells Sabine, ready position, and it's the same how Ezra...
Okay, ready position. Sabine, ready position?
And then at one point, Ahsoka gives Sabine a helmet to put on so she can't see anything. And this was where I was like, you might want to reference Kanan, because for the people who haven't seen Rebels, Kanan was the Jedi in that show, and he got blinded at one point. And because of the fact that he got blinded, he was not able to see anything. So why doesn't Sabine reference him in some way here? Because not only this, but also something later in the episode has something like, you can reference Kanan, I know it's been quite a while, but I feel like it's very relevant to the situation to reference him. So initially Sabine is fighting with Huyang, and Huyang at the end of that is like, oh, it's not bad, but it's not good. And it just shows, well, okay, Sabine needs to get there again, but it's not bad, at least. Something positive, I suppose. And then Ahsoka's like, well, I'll take over now. I'll have her put on the helmet, and then we'll see how that goes. And what I like with this fight is that Sabine slowly gets a bit of a feel. It's very slow. We don't really get there yet at all, but you do see that she's getting more visceral, and she's really trying to anticipate, because she is really giving this her all, her best. Which is good, that Sabine really does want to get back into it. And that's also pretty much like what I want from Sabine in terms of how she's able to use the Force. I want her to help the Force guide her a little bit with her fighting style, with her fighting skills, and just to be able to anticipate moves. But I don't want her to actually use the Force. Because if she would use the Force, I kind of feel that would cheapen the Force, her character, that kind of stuff. So I hope they essentially keep it with this. So we then cut to the New Republic fleet, where we see Hera, and she's about to meet up with some politicians. But before she meets up with them, this guy named Hawkins tells her that Xiono is in there. Xiono, that is actually a name that we know. For the people who don't know, Star Wars Resistance, that animated show, had 2 seasons. Most people probably won't. But the main character is called Kazuda Xiono. He is the son of this character, Hamada Xiono. And Xiono is a senator on Hosnian Prime, We don't really see him much in Resistance. To be fair, it's been quite a while since I've seen Resistance. I don't really remember it particularly well. But as far as I remember, we didn't see him much. He was kind of a dick to his son, which is not very nice. And he's a dick here again. Yay. Awesome. But that gives you a little bit of an idea what we're in for with him. Hera goes in to meet the politicians. She meets Chancellor Mon Mothma now, again played by Genevieve O'Reilly. I think she was already a Chancellor in Legends. I'm not 100% sure on that, but it just makes sense that she would be the Chancellor, that she would be in charge of the New Republic right now, which is cool. I'm just happy to see her again because I thought she did a great job in Andor as well as the character. And it's nice to see her here. And then she name drops Jason. Jason Syndulla, Hera's son. An interesting thing about that as well is he is named after Jason Solo in Legends. Jason Solo, of course, is the kid of Han and Leia who falls to the dark side. A lot of things happen with him. So I'm curious to see what will happen to little Jason Syndulla here. And when Mon Mothma name drops him, I was just like, are we actually going to see him? I think we're not going to see him. We do. Luckily, we do. But I was a little afraid that we might not yet. So Hera tells the politicians what she found on Corellia and that she thinks it's Thrawn who's going to make his return. And then they're like, Thrawn? But all the senators are just complete idiots, especially Xiono. All of them are like, no, that can't be happening. Oh, no. And Hera's just like, when people say for the Empire, that doesn't really inspire loyalty. Like, guys, can you fucking listen to her already? Because these politicians, my God, they're gonna frustrate the hell out of me throughout this entire season, I feel, because they're just such a bunch of idiots. They're like, no, we need these resources. We can't help you with your personal quest for Ezra. Shut up, you stupid idiot. Like, wake the fuck up. Thrawn is out there. Ezra is out there. This is your proof. There's going to be more proof shown to them, I think, in the future. But even if not, they need to wake up and they need to just see this as something. If Hera tells you something, a general of the New Republic, she's been a general for 10 years, that should mean something. You should believe her. Yeah, Xiono says, oh, it's ultimately your personal quest to find Ezra Bridger. But, she has some say, I feel. You should listen to her. I kind of get the feeling that Xiono might not be entirely good. We'll have to wait and see about that. But this guy's frustrating. I do love how Hera just absolutely burns him. Like, oh, were you in the war? Or you just waited to see who came out on top? Oof! Yes! Yes. Love it. Again, the sassy Hera who calls people out on their bullshit. Love that. So at the end of that, Mon Mothma is like, Hera, can you please step outside? Hera does so. This reminded me a little bit of Season 4, Episode 8 of Star Wars Rebels, where Hera also tries to convince the rebel leaders to go to Lothal, and they're like, no, we don't really want to. In that episode, she comes back to be like, hey, I actually have a case, and that's then what leads her to the promotion of general, and that is what then gets her the approval of going to Lothal. In this case, not so much. And then we meet Jason Syndulla. And that was the thing that I think is kind of funny because we just had the release of the Lego Ghost, a new version of the Ghost. We had one back in the day, but now we have a new one for Ahsoka. And when that Lego set released and the minifigure selection was shown, we saw a little Jason Syndulla with brown hair. Why does he have brown hair if in the show he clearly has green hair? Because I'm so glad to see that he has the same green hair as we saw in the Rebels epilogue, because we saw that in Rebels, so why wouldn't he have it right now? Of course he would have green hair. That's how it's supposed to be. Then why in the hell does the Lego set mess that one up? A little bit frustrating. This, again, confirms to me that I shouldn't get the Lego set because I'm actually waiting for an Ultimate Collector Series type set, because I know I've made the same mistake twice before. I got this AT-AT, and then they released the UCS AT-AT. I got the Razor Crest, and then they released the UCS Razor Crest. I'm like, I'm going to wait for the Ghost to release a UCS set, because I want a UCS Ghost. This is a bit of a side tangent that's going on, but I felt that I just had to address that. So Jason tells Hera that he wants to be a Jedi because he heard that Aunt Sabine is going to be a Jedi. Interesting that he says Aunt, but it very much shows to me, the Rebels crew, they might not be actual family, but they're a family. That is what they are, and that is what they've kind of always been. So it's nice to have that little bit. But yeah, he tells Hera he wants to be a Jedi. Jason is the son of Kanan, who was a Jedi. Can we mention Kanan already? Because I very much just get the feeling that they're not going to mention Kanan whatsoever to make sure that people who haven't seen Rebels are not lost on it. It's like, but there he has to have a father. Like, if Hera had a son, who's the father? The father is Kanan Jarrus. He was a Jedi. Mention him. I'm wondering if he'll be mentioned at any point. We'll see. I would really like it, though. Like, just give him a little nod, okay? So we cut back to Sabine and Ahsoka having a conversation about the Force and how Sabine is like, I don't have it. And Ahsoka's like, well, but it's in everyone. Because very early on in the franchise, it was established that the Force is everywhere. And everyone technically has it. But Ahsoka is like, but talent is a factor. You need to have a certain gift for it. Because, of course, Sabine was never really talented, gifted in the Force in any way. And it's very difficult for someone who's not like that to then connect to the Force, because she's also like, why wouldn't anyone use it? Well, because it's not that easy, really. So I really like this explanation from Filoni, because it very much seems like that is Filoni's take on the Force. And I very much agree with that. I think I can very much just get into that explanation of the Force. And I also like how afterwards in the cockpit, Ahsoka and Huyang are talking. Like, Huyang is like, well, of course she wouldn't have been accepted. There was no way that she would ever be accepted, because the Jedi would never do that, and I've been with them for so long. And Ahsoka is like, yeah, and then they failed. I really like that, because that is pretty much how Luke also explains it. The Jedi failed. The Jedi Order were a bunch of idiots at the end, and it failed. So maybe the entire philosophy of like, oh, we only go look out for Force-sensitive children in the galaxy is maybe a philosophy that doesn't always work. And the Force can be everywhere, and everyone can have the Force. I love that explanation, because I think it is very much in line with what Luke tries to explain in The Last Jedi. And I think, it all comes full circle, and it does tie together. Then we see Sabine trying to pull the cup with the Force. And the funny thing was, when I was watching this with my girlfriend, she was like,
give me the water.
Like in Dune, because it reminded me of Dune as well. That one of the very first scenes in the movie Dune from 2021, where Paul needs to get the water from his mom and needs to use the voice to do that. Very reminiscent. But of course, Sabine doesn't manage to pull the cup, and I don't want her to pull that cup. I don't want her to use the Force in that way. I think that would just cheapen her character. What is funny to me, though, this is season 1, episode 3 of Ahsoka, and in season 1, episode 3 of Rebels, Ezra tried to also lift a bowl. It's a little different, but very similar. He tried to lift a bowl. In that episode, though, Chopper trolls him by lifting up the bowl and making it look like he's actually lifting it, but it's a joke. But it's interesting, because season 1, episode 3 of both shows have a character do something like that. So Hera then contacts them and says that, well, they will not be coming because the senators are a bunch of idiots and she couldn't get approval. But before she can really get into the explanation, transmissions are cut off. They arrive at the system where comms are jammed for some reason. And they detect a couple of objects on the other side of the planet, including the hyperspace ring. But before they can really get anything done, they're already being attacked by a couple of fighters, and get an action sequence that I think plays out very well, because Sabine has to go into the tail gun, and Sabine and Ahsoka need to get together again. Like, they need to get onto the same page again. And initially, it's a bit of a struggle. They don't really know how to anticipate each other's moves and how to work together. But slowly, as the battle develops, they get into it more. Sabine learns to tell what she needs from Ahsoka, and Ahsoka learns to trust Sabine a little bit again. So I think it works out very well. And at the end, they take down 3 of the 5. Of course, the 3 nameless ones, Shin and Merrick, are still behind them. And then they get close enough to the ring to see it. Then they're like, oh, that looks like a hyperspace ring, which we get confirmation of later in the episode as well. So yeah, definitely a hyperspace ring. And it definitely seems like it's a hyperspace ring big enough for the Chimera, for a Star Destroyer. And because of the fact that they realize this is important, they need to scan it. So Huyang is like, get me closer. I need to scan this thing. So they get closer, and at one point they get disabled. It's interesting, by the way, in this entire sequence, how Morgan and Shin give each other shit for not properly taking out Ahsoka's ship. And it shows that while they are working for the same side, they're not necessarily together in this, and they're not necessarily good friends or anything. No, they're only working together for the sake of it. And the connecting element is Balin, actually. So then the ship is in very bad shape, and the fighters are still on them. So Ahsoka decides to go out onto the wing in her customized spacesuit. I find it very funny that she has a customized spacesuit, even with her mantras and Leku completely like, oh yeah, no, it fits perfectly around that. And I thought this was something that we would just see in the Clone Wars or Rebels even. But yeah, like this is straight out of animation. And I think this very much shows that while this show could be enjoyed by people who haven't seen the animated shows, this is a reward for the people watching the animated shows. Like, you've been watching the animated stuff for so long, and now we are giving you a live action show that is very much the animated shows translated into live action. Enjoy it. And I definitely do. So Ahsoka's distraction works. Sabine manages to fix the ship. They dive into the atmosphere. And here we finally see the Purrgil in live action. Space whales. I will say this. The first time we saw the space whales back in Star Wars Rebels, the episode The Call, I thought the episode was very don't really care about these space whales. But now to see them in live action, it's like, oh my god, it's the Purrgil. I've changed my view a little bit on them. It was very cool to see them in live action. I think they look pretty good. Like, sure, they don't look exactly like in Rebels, but I think, you know, that's just the animation to live action transition that is just logical. So they managed to evade through the Purrgil. Huyang then wakes up and he's just like, what did I miss? They're just like, well, we almost died a couple of times. Well, okay, standard operating procedure. We're used to this. What else is new, you know? And then they set down in the forest. The fighters fly over. They've lost them. And then they have the scan complete of the hyperspace ring. We get the confirmation that it is indeed a hyperspace ring, that this is a hyperspace ring with a lot of different hyperspace cores that will be able to transport them all the way to a different galaxy. And yeah, just very far, very quickly. It's like so huge, like something that we've actually never seen, as far as I know, in Star Wars. That instantly makes them realize, oh, this is real serious. We need to deal with this immediately, because luckily they're not done prepping yet. And the last shot of the episode we see is that Balin tells his minions, let's just call them that, to go find the ship, hunt them down. And then the episode ends, and this is where I was like, oh, that's it already? Because I was really loving this episode. I was really into it, and I was like, nah, I want more. But yeah, those are my thoughts on episode 3 of Ahsoka. I really liked it yet again, and I think that will be no different with the rest of the season. I am wondering, what do you think of it? Let me know in the comments below your thoughts and opinions on the show so far. And of course, thank you for watching my video. Please like and subscribe, and follow me on social media. And until the next episode review, may the Force be with you.